Hello and welcome to the Wolves Report podcast, the last podcast before the 2022-23 season kicks off with myself, Ryan Leister. Delighted to be joined by BBC WM Steve Hermon and, of course, our resident pundit, or it's only half a pundit tonight, but two of them put together is one, is it? We've got Chris Tyler. Knock us away, no word of a lie. He's on his third break this month, so how them butchers live some lifestyle, don't they, Tyler? Tonight we're going to be previewing the 22-23 season, looking at the transfer window so far, talk about the pre-season, the switch to 4-3-3 stroke 4-2-3-1, your season expectations and questions. We put a few tweets out, got some of your questions that are going to come up later on, but this show works with the interaction from you guys watching as well. So if you want to post your comments up, what I'd like to know tonight, I'm not going to talk through them all, but I want to know where you think Wolves will finish this season. If you put it in the comments box and a little comment what you think about the season, I'll get it put on the screen below. You can see your comment up, and then we'll go through some questions. So let's kick the show off then. Pre-season so far, I personally think, guys, I think the pre-season in terms of the football has been a success. Obviously, we'll move on to the transfer window shortly, but you guys have both watched the teams through pre-season. I think it's been a success. However, they are only friendlies. There's only so much we can judge. We're really going to get a real taste of it next week at Leeds in a really pleasant, nice, quiet stadium there. So, Steve, what's your take on the pre-season?
Yeah, I think we're starting to see what Bruno Lage wanted to do at the start of last season. You know, we opened with those 3 games and those 3 defeats, but some of the football that we saw in those opening 3 games last season were probably some of the best sort of going for the jugular attacking style football that we'd seen. And I think there's a bit more, don't get me wrong, there's a bit more slickness to it than that from what we've seen in pre-season. Like you said, you can't fully judge it, but I think Morgan Gibbs-White's reintegrated really well, which I'm really pleased to see. I think the last time I was on the Wolves Report, we were talking about Neves departing. He's still there, which is fantastic. So is Moutinho. And then you've got the prospect of Pedro Neto. Hopefully this is the... Because, let's face it, he came back, what was it, January, February time? And he was basically using the rest of the season to get fit. Now he should be fit and he's looking good. Ryan Aït-Nouri's looking good as well. And Daniel Podence, hopefully he shook off his injury worries. So, I mean, that's really the top end of the field. But one of the, obviously one of the most interesting things is the back four and the consistency of using that. And this might be something we come on to later, but it's raising the prospect of who's the 2 centre halves that start at Leeds next week.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm really glad we kicked off the season in the podcast in a positive way, Steve. I'm not sure Tyler was going to do the same, but before we focus on the actual transfers, Tyler, I'm sure you'd agree with most of that. In terms of the football side of things, I think it's been a positive pre-season.
Yeah, well, anyone who listens to this has, heard us harp on about going to a back four, haven't they? 4-2-3-1. It's just a no-brainer. It's just a no-brainer, and I know they're only friendly matches, like you said, Ryan, and you can only beat what's in front of you, but the style of football, especially in the two that we had over in Benidorm, the fluidity, the movement, the interchange, playing out from the back. I mean, like we talked about, would you rather have the extra player forward or sweeping up? And for me, it's a no-brainer. I'd always rather have them higher up the pitch. Like Steve said, Gibbs-White's just fitted in, looked like he's played there for years with the other, Neto and Podence. The loss of, I think, a number 9, obviously we'll come on to it, I think is a big blow to what Bruno wanted to do, that focal point. But it gives other people an opportunity, doesn't it? But yeah, I just echo what Steve said. It's been positive. We don't know the real calibre of the opposition. We haven't really played a powerhouse, have we? I mean, Lisbon are obviously a decent side and we did well there. So yeah, you'd go into it pretty positive, I think, all things told.
You talk about playing out from the back. I mean, Max Kilman in that Alaves game took it literally, didn't he? He played it all the way out from the back.
Me and Knocker were over there with Knocker's dad for that game, and I mean, we really enjoyed some of those goals. It was a nice trip, but yeah, some of the football. But I think, Steve, the progression of the football as we've worked our way through the friendlies has got better and better. I mean, Sporting was obviously the big test. There's a player there that's been linked with Wolves who's an incredibly gifted footballer. I think he's probably a little bit out of Wolves' reach, but we played against a really good team in Sporting. I think they reached the last 16 of the Champions League. Yes, they got smashed by Man City, but still, we're talking about the premium cup competition in world football, and they got to the last 16. And we probably ran out of steam, gas at the end, and ideas. But that first half, Wolves were very, very good value for that lead, and it was entertaining. It was good as well.
Yeah, there was some good football. Obviously, the Friends game is a little bit more difficult to judge because it was a very different lineup, really, in that one. I think the team that lined up against Sporting, I don't think it's going to be that far different against Leeds, to be fair. I wouldn't be surprised if there weren't, if it was almost like for like in that. Besiktas as well. I mean, they're a team that have played in Europe, as we know, because we beat them in Europe twice, but they're still a team that have played in Europe, so they're no mugs, in fairness to them. So, yeah, as you say, you can't fully judge it because people don't, no one's going full throttle 100%. But yeah,
well,
the cliche is you can only beat what's in front of you.
I don't know about Steve. This is the angriest Wolves team I've seen in pre-season. I've been watching Wolves since I was 11. I mean, and I've done friendlies, Sterling, Albion, France, some ridiculous places to watch a friendly game of football, but they look really pumped. And if they're like that now, they look hungry. Obviously the Battle of Benidorm, that was something else. I don't know what was going on there. Yeah. But Tyler, the aggression in pre-season as well, not just the style of play, but there looks a real togetherness, the hunger. Like if you kick one of our players, I'm not saying Wolves were soft, but they were probably a little bit softer than would have liked to have been in the last few years. They look like they've got a bit of bite.
No, I think it is a big point. I think we've been too nice for years. We haven't had that spite, like you said, in the park. And I was watching it was the Battle of the Benidorm. I just had on in the background. I was working from home, and I just ended up I couldn't take my eyes off the screen because it was just crazy. And there were a few tackles going in, but I think there were a couple of things where the way that Gibbs White reacted to someone getting fouled, he was sprinting straight over there. And like you said, you can't read too much into it, but that, if nothing else, shows a bit of togetherness. It shows a tight group. It shows a bit of fight, and I'm all for it. I think we've been too nice for a long time now. So yeah, it's nice to see a bit of needle, to be honest, even in games that don't really mean anything.
I think it's something that developed a little bit throughout the end of last season because everyone points back the Brentford game early last season where Brentford were using all the tricks in the book, and that they did Wolves over that day using a lot of those tricks. And I think Wolves actually learned from that game and started to do it themselves later on in the season and started to annoy teams themselves. And maybe they've ramped it up even more in pre-season. And first game away at Ellen Road, that's going to have needle in it anyway. So it makes it a tasty prospect, doesn't it?
Just before, I've had a few people comment on my sound. Are you guys okay on my sound?
It's all right. Okay. Tiny bit fuzzy, but you're all right.
Oh, I've gone a bit fuzzy. I've got as if I've got Knocker's microphone when he's on a holiday. Couldn't you? I just can't believe that. As long as you can hear me, that's the main thing anyway. Pre-season aggression. Talk about playing it from the back, as you mentioned with Max Kilman, but Ryan Ait-Nouri, again, it's only friendlies, but this guy for me has been the player of pre-season. We've all known his silky footwork has been glorious to watch at times. Games last season when he pretty much pocketed Mo Salah until he got injured, and then I think that the goal went away. Then that was frustrating. But Ryan Ait-Nouri, though, what a pre-season he's had and what a prospect. And talk of Wolves putting a 45 million tag on him, which I don't think is enough. I'm going to try and fix my sound, so I'm going to let you talk about Ryan Ait-Nouri.
I think we all knew he was a big prospect. I think it's been a really interesting summer, hasn't it? In the sense of because we had the two options of the loan players and the options to buy. There was Ryan Ait-Nouri, and then there was Vitinha. Vitinha's obviously made a really big move this summer, hasn't he? And I think a lot of people wondering, what if and should we have got him? But I think a lot of fans are glad that we at least signed Ryan. Was it 10 million that we paid permanently in the end? And that looks like an absolute bargain, doesn't it? So
it's 10 million plus. That's 50% of the ownership. So if Wolves want to buy out the full ownership, it's another 10 million. Otherwise, we have to give whoever it is 50% sell-on fee. So ideally, we want to buy it out.
Yeah, you sounded a lot clearer, by the way.
Did I? That's good news.
You put a plug in.
Stop shouting, Ryan. It's a bit loud.
Sorry, I've tried a new setup, and I apologise. Knocker's lent me his microphone, and he's well and truly teaching me a lesson. Thanks for the comments, though. Obviously,
at least you like to work in.
This is true. Thanks for the comments saying it's a bit muffled on the same quality. I hope that's a bit better now. Greg, thank you. That's bang on. It is a live show, so these things are going to happen sometimes. We've just got to recover and get on with it. So, well, I have anyway. The guests have shown me up in terms of the quality. Ryan Aitnor has been good. Let's talk about the new boy, Nathan Collins. Obviously, I think he was a week or two behind in terms of his fitness and his pre-season training. However, he looks like someone that's growing and developing. Tyler, what's your first take on that second giant centre-back?
Yeah, I think it's a very good signing, to be honest. I think, what is he, 21, too young, 5-year deal, hungry, lot to prove, right footer with the balance of Kilman on the left. I know he gave the penalty away first half, but I thought some of his play against Bolton was very good, the way he read it. Doesn't seem to be lunging or, panicking or diving, and he seems to read it well. I think he's the perfect complement to Kilman, and I dropped to tweaks. There was a bit of talk about Cody, wasn't there, before the Lisbon friendly, and a bit of disrespect towards him that you saw on social media. But for me, if Wolves are playing a back four, I know you mentioned we're going to come on to it, Collins and Kilman are the two all day long. You don't sign a £20 million centre-back to not play. He's going to play, and Kilman's our best centre-back, especially with the left foot. So for me, it's a no-brainer. I think he's slotted in brilliantly. And I think it's a really astute signing again, isn't it? He's only going to grow in value. He's a good Fosun signing. He's only going to get better. He's only going to make money. For me, it was a great piece of business, and just a shame we haven't had one or two more of the same ilk, really.
We'll go on to that, but you got onto an area then I wasn't really going to cover, but I think we should go on to it because I know it's caused a bit of split in social media in terms of opinion and talking about it. But there's an elephant in the room, and that elephant in the room is Conor Cody, because club captain, incredible few years at Wolves, made the sweeper his own, England regular now, great bloke, and some fantastic performances at sweeper. However, in my opinion, he's not a man that's going to fit into a back four. And if you're signing Collins and you've got Kilman, unless there's someone injured or it doesn't work out, it looks difficult for Cody. What's your take on the situation with Conor, Steve?
I find it really interesting. Obviously, as you know, I work at BBC Radio WM, and we cover, we've got 5 full-time teams, and the 2 in the Premier League, Wolves and Villa. And I put a tweet out a couple of weeks ago asking the question of the two situations, saying, could we have a situation where the 2 club captains of Wolves and Villa start the Premier League season on the bench? And that was before we knew about Tyrone Mings having the captaincy taken off him at Villa, and John McGinn getting the captain's armband. I know that Kilman's worn it a couple of times in pre-season, and obviously Neves has worn the captain's armband before as well. So maybe it's more of a fluid situation, and it's not going to be something that Wolves would announce necessarily. I think whatever happens, Conor Cody is club captain. His influence off the field can't be denied, and I think that's that's the praise he got for England, isn't it? He doesn't play for England, but his influence off the field gets praised. So I don't think it's the same as the Tyrone Mings situation necessarily. But if Wolves are going to go to a back four, and as Tyler's pointed out, they've spent 20 odd million on Nathan Collins, he's going to play, and then the next best person to play alongside him, especially on that side of the defence, is Max Kilman in a back four. I think we saw in those Nations League games for England, Conor Cody did play in a back four, I think in the first game against Hungary, which we lost. Not as bad as the one at Molineux, but we'll move on from that one because I'm still hurting from that game. But yeah, unfortunately, I think, I'd say in the driving seat is Nathan Collins and Max Kilman at the moment.
And you'd have to say, unless it was a disastrous or terrible start, it's hard to see anything being a back four unless one of those gets injured. I mean, Wolf889 says, didn't like disrespect to Cody on Twitter. Great bloke and captain, but too slow in the back four, unfortunately. I would say in terms of his physical attributes, his pace and his height, probably to be a Premier League centre-back. I mean, Man United just signed a centre-back, I think, who's about 5'10", for an absolute wedge of money, who's great at it. Connor may prove us wrong. I just don't see that at the moment. I've not personally been disrespectful to Cody. I think he's a great human. He's been fantastic. But equally, we've harped on it long enough about getting the back four. It's Bruno's style of football. It's been a bit insipid for like two halves of the last two seasons. It's been a bit boring. And we've seen the handbrake come off. Podence, Neto, getting forward. Gibbs White, now he's come back. These guys are enjoying the football. Although it's a small squad, those regular first teamers all look like they're enjoying playing a back four, Tyler. Do you think?
I think so, yeah. And like I said, we've been talking about it for probably a season and a half, haven't we? It just gives you so much more up front. You know, there's options everywhere, isn't there? You know, Neves looks up. He's got options. He's got runners. He's got players in front of him. Someone put a good point today I saw about, I think Wolves have had 3 penalties in pre-season, which I think we had 1 in the whole season.
That's a really good point. I hadn't thought about that.
Because there are wingers running into the box with the ball. It sounds really basic, doesn't it? But we didn't do that before.
He'll never catch on.
We'd come back, we'd start again, we'd check back again, we'd rarely cross it. You know, the goal, was it the first penalty, one of the games? Neves looked at volley to Neto running onto the ball.
Yeah, Neto.
That wasn't happening before. That just wasn't happening. So there's options up front now. And forward players like to be on the ball, especially those 3. They're expressive, aren't they? Podence, Gibbs White, Neto. They want to be on the ball. They want to be involved. And I think I'm just so pleased it's happened. And I just hope we don't revert back and we keep it moving forward.
Well, not only that, we're going to sort of digress into Ruben Neves now, but surely Ruben Neves in an attacking team, when he has got talented movers with the ball that are drifting inside and out, Podence, Gibbs White, Neto, when those guys are sort of making it quite fluid and not a rigid position, surely that's a dream come true for him. Like you said, Tyler, that pass for Neto, cut them in half, run, penalty, thank you very much. So I think it looks like now we're going to keep Neves unless a stupid bid comes in. I really hope he's the captain at the start of the season.
Don't jinx it.
Yeah, well, I mean, but the thing is as well, Steve, unless it's Barcelona, and I mean, this sounds a ridiculous thing to say, but unless he's going for Champions League football, what's the point in going? He needs to go to Barcelona. He needs to go to one of the top teams in England. The top 4 in England aren't going to buy Ruben Neves. Man United might buy Ruben Neves, and they might offer him some obscene money. Is that the right move for Ruben Neves when people left, right and centre are turning down Man United? Now, if we were having this conversation 10 years ago, I'd have rolled around the floor laughing, not believing we're having it. But Man United is not the right move for Neves. If he goes, it's Barcelona or somebody like that, in my opinion. But just going back to the positive of Neves, the football that Wolves are playing, someone that can pick out people. I really enjoy the way he's dropping between the centre backs. The full-backs are going high up. There's almost like there's so many options forward, and we're squeezing teams from the off. And it's a real joy to watch. So in this system, if we manage to keep with the 4 and after a good start, I think it's going to be probably Ruben Neves' best season for Wolves.
Yeah, I think the leash started to come off last season. But I think in this formation, yeah, hopefully there's a bit more freedom. There's also a bit more responsibility. You know, he's not a youngster anymore. He's very much in his prime, really. But there's more responsibility on his shoulders. The fact that he's still here when everyone expected him to go, I think, you know, certainly if he does stay past the window, and I really hope so. Everyone hopes so. He was already on hero status, wasn't he? But he's into legendary status, and if he can have a great season, then you know he can cement that. It's as I say, it's the one thing I was pondering as well about going back to Connor Cody very briefly. Is there any way, or am I just being hopeful because I like the guy and I think he is a great captain? And that point that's just flashed up there from Adrian Cody.
I thought that was good timing.
Fight. There you go. And I wouldn't want him to. Absolutely. I 100% agree with that. Is there any way, I mean, could he be reconverted into a central midfielder or a deep lying midfielder? You know, you talked about Ruben Neves dropping deep and picking up the ball in front of the defence. Can Cody do that? Not in the same way as Neves. I'm not comparing the two. But is that a role he can fill instead?
I think we will potentially see that in a League Cup game if Cody's still here and if he's not been playing, because he's got the range. I just again, I don't want to be disrespectful. I've seen him in midfield, and I know he's a better player now. He's definitely a better player now. He has had way more of a career than I thought he would ever have at Wolves after he came from Huddersfield. I might be wrong, Steve, and I'm always happy to be wrong if it's to the benefit of our football club. I personally just don't see. For me, I mean,
if I would have said to you before the promotion winning season when Nuno came in that Conor Cody's going to be in the middle of a back three and the captain, and he's going to play for England, what would you have said then?
I think you'd have been fired from BBC WM, Steve. But it's a great point, and we have to take that on board. He's a fighter, as Adrian says. He's not going to give it up easily, and he'll know if it's a 4, he's got a real battle on his hands, and he'll take any opportunity to be back in that team. If he's not in the team for a little while, it probably means Wolves are succeeding, the back four's working, and they're winning football matches. So it's a really interesting situation that Wolves now have got in England a regular England international that's probably not going to start if everyone's fit, and I find that a stunning thing to say, to be honest. But for me, it's a massive positive problem. We are the one area we're doing okay. He's centre back. The rest of the pitch, it's a bit thin on the ground. But imagine having an England international that doesn't look like he's going to start the season for Wolves.
Well, we could end up having an England international still starting for Wolves in Max Kilman. He was before his injury. He was well on the way to getting a call up, in my opinion. I know that obviously he got the injury, and Mark Gurhey from Palace kind of has stepped up and got his opportunity. Yeah, great player, but Conor Cody as an England international could well be on the bench. But Max Kilman, has he got a chance of sneaking into the World Cup squad if he's starting?
Well, what I would say, Tyler, about Max Kilman, we've spent 20.5 million pounds on Collins, who's looked a real rock. But Max Kilman looks another level ahead of Collins. Yes, they're only pre-season games, but the way Max Kilman has dominated this pre-season, gliding past players, hardly a foot wrong, left foot, right foot, strong, good in the air, scored an amazing goal. He's got I know Southgate likes a settled squad, and I'd be really surprised if any surprises broke in. However, if he takes the form of when he was peaking last season into this season, and the likes of Mings, he's taken the captaincy, so he's not guaranteed to start for Villa, there's a left-footed centre-back spot available for England. And I genuinely believe if he stays fit and does well, Max Kilman could be going to the World Cup.
Yeah, I still think it might come a bit too soon. But when you look at centre-backs, I mean, there's nothing he hasn't got. He's got everything. He has got everything you'd want in a modern-day centre-back. He's pretty quick, or he's quicker than he looks. He recovers well. Left foot, they always look better, don't they, when they've got a left foot. He's tall, he's big, he's strong, he can pass, he can dribble, he brings it out. He has got everything. So, like Steve said, I think it's purely a matter of time. Can he squeeze in before, November? So what do they play? Is it a dozen or so games?
They've got a few. They've got a few Nations League. Yeah. Well, I mean, I said I wasn't going to talk about it again, but after the debacle at Molineux, I think spots in
mate, let it all out, Steve.
Spots in the defence are open. I'll tell you what, I will say one thing, and I said it on Twitter at the time. What was it? 3-0 down, 10 minutes to go, and you bring on Harry Maguire.
What are you doing?
What were you doing? There would have been. I mean, I know not every single person in that crowd was a Wolves fan, but that would have at least appeared.
But it almost felt the reason why the game was at Molineux, because
he was on the programme, he was on the social media. Anyway, move on. Let's get. I'm over it.
Do you feel better now, Steve? You got that done.
That was cathartic. Thank you.
So we talked about the formation setup. For me, really exciting. So let's bring us back into reality a bit now. We need to talk about the transfer window now. For me, the business they've done, the one piece of business is a splendid bit of business. I don't believe for 1 second that Collins didn't have a relegation buyout clause, because there's no way Wolves would have got him for that price. I'm not sure Burnley wanted to advertise that. I'm only going on speculation here, by the way. I don't know fact. I think negotiations were in terms of how long they're going to pay for, and then Wolves put in a 20% on, I think, as well, because I don't believe for a second Burnley would have sold him for 20.5 million. I just don't believe that. I may be wrong. However, one piece of business, fantastic piece of business, but the amount of bodies that have gone compared to what's come in, and no disrespect to the teams that's played in the sort of reserve stroke second teams, there's been a couple of players that have been all right, but the options, Tyler, it's bad, isn't it? If we are literally, I mean, some of the questions later on, well, how thin on the ground are we, and what we're going to do?
I genuinely don't know. I mean, I thought it would be bad because me, you, and Knocker have probably we towed that line the whole time. I mean, I didn't expect an influx of players, but it's worse than I thought. And if it doesn't improve pretty quickly, I genuinely fear for next season. Our first 11 will give anybody a game. Anybody in that league will give a game to, and I think it can beat anybody. Genuinely, I don't see one substitution that makes Wolves better or different or changes it.
If we keep Adama, I would say he could change a game.
Yeah. Where is he though? I know the speculation he's had a bit of a hamstring niggle. But,
Sainsbury's in Wombat, I saw.
Exactly.
Sainsbury's in Wombat, isn't he?
Love that shirt he had on.
If he wanted to play for Wolves, I think he'd be in and around it now. Again, I might be being a bit cynical, but I feel for Bruno. How can you not back him? I mean, it's negligence. I said it is negligence to have the lack of options he's got from the bench. Just isn't good. I mean, can we even name 9 substitutes against Leeds?
I tried to do that. I looked at the players in and around. Obviously, Cody, Bolly, Mosquera.
Yeah, we've got 18 centre backs, but I'm about game changers. People the game. There's nothing. There's not one option.
We have one striker at the club, and he's out. Well, I'm only going to say a couple of weeks because I don't want to upset the. I want to upset the Jimenez family. So yeah,
he might be watching. So yeah, be careful.
Well, hopefully he's back soon. But Steve, this is a real issue, isn't it? I mean, if Wolves are rolling the dice here, it almost feels like obviously it was a gamble on Fabio, being sort of Raul's backup, but we were then thrusting an 18-year-old lad into the Premier League after a handful of performances. I didn't learn from that injury. Now Raul's out again. It almost feels like in football, you learn, you develop. New owners, new to football. You have to learn from your experiences, good and bad. I don't feel like Wolves have learned at all here. And to go to Leeds, a Premier League game, in the most lucrative league in world football, with no alternative number 9, for me I'm going to be polite, and I think it's incredibly poor. And I'm worried. I like the 4-3-3. It's all right, but it's not quite 4-2-3-1. Help me, Steve. Give me some positives.
Well,
don't
know. Man City didn't really have a number 9 last season and won the league. So I don't know. Is that a positive? But yeah, they had a hell of a lot of talent, which I mean, Wolves do. As Tyler said, you know, the 11, the strongest 11, could give anyone a game. Absolutely spot on. But as we know, the problem is injuries. If Podence, I mean, he's got a history of only lasting a few months, and then he picks up an injury. Neto's was obviously a very serious one that he's come back from, but those things can happen, and that's the big worry, isn't it? That it is paper thin. I think we're strong in the goalkeeper area. We've got about 4 goalkeepers, haven't we, or something? If you can include some of the youngsters that. And
I think that all pre-season, I know we're sort of drifting out again, but all pre-season they've all played really well. I don't recall a keeping error. I mean, some would question the free kick that went in probably last night that the free kick went in, but even it's a great free kick. But I think the whole pre-season they've looked really, really, really good. And I like Sarr. He's a little bit mad. He's a bit edgy, but I think he's bravery to come off the line to allow us to sweep will allow this system to flourish. He probably didn't get to see as much as last year because we were sitting quite deep, but now we've not got the sweeper. He can be there to sweep, not saying like pinging it around, but just to tidy up. So I'm delighted he's back for the start of the season.
Yeah, and I think and I think Sarkic is a good backup. He got the Blues Player of the Year when he didn't play after January. Solid. He's a solid enough backup. But going in terms of the signings, again, Tyler absolutely spot on. I think if we're trying to be realistic, did we expect a boatload? No. I think that the problem is, I think a lot of us and a lot of fans, you get swept up, especially on social media, and Wolves are always being linked with lots of players. But as we know, it's a game. The transfer windows are a game for the agents, and especially when it comes to George Mendes clients, Wolves' name is automatically, whether we're interested or not, Wolves' name is going to get thrown.
We're very much a leverage, aren't we? A stepping stone.
Yeah, we are. Because there was a lot of frustration, about Palhinha when he ended up going to Fulham, and it was like, there was kind of a lot of people thinking, great, that's a great, decent player, decent midfield player. But why has he gone to Fulham? Why has he gone to Fulham? I think you have to ask the question, were we actually in for him at any point? Were we just strung along? And, and same with the Nunes fella as well. I think you have to kind of, like I said, be a bit level. It's difficult, but you have to be level-headed and realistic. Are Wolves actually in for these players? And
cool. It's difficult not to draw in. I mean, I'm a grown man. I see a Twitter rumor. You know what I mean? I'll check it out. I'll try and find more story. You can't help it. You get sucked in, and you just become hopeful. But as I tweeted, my pinned tweet until I did this podcast was, stories will come, but let's not believe anything until the player's holding the shirt, because that way, then you're not going to get disappointed. I believe if Wolves had wanted Polina, I think they'd have got him. I think it became very clear early on that Neves, that there wasn't a market there for Neves at that point, and he maybe would have come in. That's not happened. So I do believe if Wolves had wanted him, we'd have got him. I don't know where he'd fit in now if we had him here. 20 million. I'm not dropping Matinho because Neves is sitting in. I don't want Polina further forward. So he doesn't fit in for me now. That'd be a ridiculous expensive sub, although he's a good player. So the rest of the window, I just can't believe that this is it. And I know... I don't believe it. I'm confident there'll be more players. Will there be lots? I don't think so. I think there'll be another number 9, and I think there'll be another midfielder, because for all the good work that Fosun have done, and the squad that's been assembled, and the good days out, the cup run, the Europe, Wolves are a massive massive marketing tool for Fosun, and if they lose that, then it's gone, hasn't it? So they're not going to risk relegation. So I do think they'll be backed.
Yeah, two things. I think I'm hoping that there is another number 9 that comes in. What we don't want is a panicked by George Mendes client. Here you go. Here's Willian Jose.
There's no need for that, Steve.
That's what I mean.
There's children watching this show, mate.
But you don't want that again, do you? You don't want a player for the sake of it. But the other thing I would say as well is because this is a repeated conversation, isn't it, about the small squad and not many players. It was always for years banded as, Nuno likes a small squad. Nuno likes to have a small squad. I definitely don't think Bruno is like that. So has it actually, rather than being painted as a Nuno mentality, what is it actually? Has it been the whole time a Fosun mentality of a small squad?
It feels that way, and
I think it's the balance of the squad, though, isn't it? How can we have probably 6-7 centre backs on the books and 1 striker? It's the balance, isn't it? If that was 4 centre backs and 2 or 3 strikers, the balance is shifted straight away. I'm with you, Ryan. I think there might be 1 or 2, but I tweeted last. I think realistically, we need 5 or 6. We
probably need 5 or 6 to challenge. If Wolves want to push on.
What if you get 2 injuries? Like Steve said, Neto's been out for a year. Podence is injured every other week. Jimenez is coming back off a life-threatening injury. Johnny's had 2 shocking injuries. They're players that don't play 38 games a season. They haven't done it, have they? So history tells you they're not going to now play 38 games a season. So I think they're well short. I genuinely do. I think it's 5 or 6 that we need.
I think you can forget about
that's to be competitive. That's not even like to push for Europe, I don't think. I think the team we saw last night are a million miles away from being Premier League footballers. A million miles away. People talk about Chen Campbell and Luke Cundle. I'm sorry, they're nowhere near it on anything I've seen. So if that's what you've got in reserve, I think it could be a long season as you get.
So those players might come good, Tyler, and they might. But I agree with you. I don't think those guys are ready because Premier League football is brutal. It's absolutely ruthless. Every fullback's quick. Most people are strong. If you have a bad game against the worst team, you will lose. It's brutal. It's brutal, and Wolves aren't one of the best teams. And an off day means probably means a defeat. So.
Yeah,
I think we see another striker come in. I've got to be honest. I don't see a young, exciting talent. I see someone that's probably already had a career that can fence with Jimenez for a year, maybe, and hopefully Fabio does well at Anderlecht. He had a great start, great goal on his debut, by the way. But that's opened up another.
How do you loan him?
This was going to ask. This is exactly what I'm going to ask. How and why would you loan out the only other number 9 you've got, who for me personally would fit this attacking formation really well? To get the best out of Fabio, if you put him in the middle of Neto, Podence, and Gibbs White, yes, he might not be the full deal yet, but for me, you get, when he's around footballers, the flicks, touch and dummies, I think you get the best out of him. So I find it really hard to understand why you would loan someone out unless you've guaranteed someone coming in. And especially now, there's a couple of, it's Monday, we're going to Leeds on Saturday. It's madness, Steve. It's absolutely crazy.
Yeah, it's not the smartest tactic, is it? I think with Fabio, you're right. When he was around, like the likes of Neto and Podence, his link-up play was really good, and he was actually, I actually thought he made Neto and Podence more threatening because of his strong link-up play. He did work on that and improved, but he still didn't score goals, which is what a number 9 is supposed to do. So I was quite not pleased, but I was like, okay, good for you. Go to Anderlecht. Belgian league's all right. Anderlecht are a decent team. So go there for a year, get your confidence back. And if he ever had it, I suppose, but get some confidence, get some goals, and come back. He signed a deal, but like you said, I was saying that while thinking, oh, if they're letting him go out on loan, they must have someone lined up. I mean, this sounds ridiculous. When I was playing Championship Manager, I'd still play it now if I had the time to do it. If I was playing Championship Manager, even then, you wouldn't let someone go without buying someone. I just got some information from a friend that's quite in the know. He said he just messaged me. Wolves responding to your poddy. William Jose was a recommendation by the Wolves recruitment team, not by George Mendes. So there we go. That wasn't a Mendes one, but this gentleman's.
I wondered what Stevie Wonder was up to these days.
Just rounding up then, because I want to move on to some positives. We've absolutely flown by, and I'm glad my sound's okay. So thank you for the comments. Also, it's getting to that stage of the show. I want you to drop a message in on YouTube now. If you are signed into there, tell me where you think Wolves are going to finish this season. In the last 25 minutes of the show, we'll get them up. Give me a prediction for the season, where Wolves are going to finish, top scorer. I mean, will someone score 10 goals? Are we going to finish in the top 10? Tyler doesn't think so. So, yeah, I'd love to keep your comments coming in. I'll try and get as many on through the show. That's why we do it live, to keep it interactive. So thank you for your contributions so far. Those guys that messaged on Twitter earlier on, we've got a couple of questions from Twitter. Want to get on board. They're going to overlap a little bit with what we've said, but I still want to get as much interaction as I can. So thank you for your contributions so far. We've done the transfer season so far. We've talked about pre-season. Let's move on to the season itself. Steve, I'm going to put you under pressure straight away. I personally I couldn't call where we're going to finish. I have absolutely no idea. I don't know if I'm blinded by the exciting football and the four at the back, and I'm really excited about it, which I am. I'm really excited about that. But I couldn't tell you if Wolves are going to finish 17th or 7th. Honestly, I have absolutely no idea. I can't call it. But you are going to call it for me now.
I will say they're going to finish somewhere between 7th and 17th. No, I think. It's difficult, isn't it? Because you sort of forget about the tail end of last season where the results weren't great, and you start to get, like you said, swept away by the attacking football, and think, oh no, we can still do top 10, and we can still fight for that last European spot and be in the mix for that. But as we've discussed, it only takes a couple of injuries, and it literally is a couple of injuries for this squad for it to be thrown off a kilter. So I'm dancing around the subject, aren't I? But I think they've got to aim for pushing. They've got to aim for pushing for Europe. I think.
Well, look what Collins has said. Collins in his interview, he said this group of players, Wolves should be pushing for Europe. Now, I don't believe you convince someone of that potential to come if there's going to be nobody coming at all. And if he's saying that, I mean, it doesn't strike me as someone that would just say it for fun. He's got to believe it. And as Tyler said earlier on, this 11 can compete with most teams. This 11 can give most teams a game on their day. However, we're already one injury down and we're significantly weakened and we're now going to have to adjust our style. So this is the problem. If we had another number 9 still, you'd be a little bit more confident. But Wolves with Jimenez and without Jimenez look quite a different team.
You say adjust the style, but are they going to adjust the style, or is it just parking someone in there? I mean, yeah, I know.
I think you have to critique it if you haven't got a centre forward. No.
Yeah, but it's still going to be a 3, though, isn't it? It's just more of a false 9 situation.
Yeah,
sort of thing.
It's 4-2-3-1 against the 4-3-3 potentially.
I mean, we've seen 4-3-3, we've seen 4-2-3-1. For me, the best. I mean, don't get me wrong. I thought the performance against Sporting, despite not having a number 9, was promising. The link play. I mean, Ain't Nori was a big part of that, and Johnny. We haven't really mentioned Johnny on the poddy tonight either, but Johnny's contribution going forward. He's such an underrated footballer. He's a great engine. I think he got a couple of assists when he was over in Spain. But we do have to adjust it a little bit. You can't play off that big man there that's going to come deep and link it. So we have to critique it. But Steve's managed to get through that without telling us where we're going to finish. Tyler,
Steve, come on.
Tyler,
how much you paying Steve for this compared to me? Come on.
Well, I'll give him knockers wages as well. So
he paid me a light bulb.
Yeah. I don't want to. I won't sit on the fence, but I see the point because I genuinely think with 2 to 3 players off a push for 7th, and I genuinely think with 2 to 3 injuries off a relegation battle, I think that's how fine it is.
Hang on.
So I think we'll finish 13th, 14th. I think you don't go 38 games without losing form. Like Steve said, the last third of the season we were disgusting. So you've got to forget about that. As I said, these players haven't consistently played 38 games a season, so we're going to get injuries. So I'd probably go, believe it or not, for me, more on the negative side and say around 14th, I think.
Okay.
But I don't think the league's that good. On the flip side, take the top 4 out.
Yeah.
You know, Leicester, West Ham have made a couple of signings. Leicester haven't. No one's done anything really in the window that makes you fear them. Villa have strengthened well, I think, but no one's really kicked on, have they? So are we going to be any better off or worse off than last season on that basis?
Now, I think, I know I mentioned it earlier on, but I genuinely believe this set of players will get more out of them playing attacking football. Even if you're playing 4 at the back with a great centre-back, Wolves are probably going to let in more goals. But that's the sacrifice you make for playing attacking football. And I genuinely believe that these guys, if we can keep Gibbs-White, keep Podence fit, keep Neto fit, these guys are there to create. They want to enjoy, they entertain, score goals, 1-2s, touches, back heels, dummies. And they've done that all pre-season. And that relationship between those 3 is there. So for me, I think Wolves are going to benefit from that. Yes, we're going to get caught out. Kilman and Collins, they're good players, but when you've got your fullbacks bombing on, you are going to get caught out sometimes. Me, I think it'll be 10 to 12 this season. I would take that. But if you give me another centre midfielder and you give me another striker, then I probably think 10th to 7th is on. A striker to compete with Jimenez, someone a little bit different, even though I think we'll go for another big guy, 6'2" plus. A centre midfielder that can travel with the ball, I think is essential because you can't expect Matinho to do that all season. Not being disrespectful to Dendoncker. He does a job, but he's not going to score goals from midfield. He's not going to break from midfield. And he'll break to get in the box, but he's not going to break with the ball. This squad right now, with limited injuries, limited suspensions, 12th, 10th, and I'll probably take that. You guys take that?
Yeah, all day long.
Yeah, yeah. I think 10th is a good aim because I think you've got to look at it that I think Arsenal with signing players like Jesus because they faltered at the start of last season, picked up, but they've made some good signings this summer. Newcastle are obviously going to be stronger. I mean, especially they're looking to sign Maddison, which
didn't get injured last night in a friendly.
Yeah, but if it happens and if he's fit, they've obviously strengthened this summer. If they get Maddison, maybe that makes Leicester weaker. So maybe that's one positive in a way. But yeah, I know, again, what Tyler said, yeah, outside of the top 4, it's not... it is quite an open league, but I think there are teams from last season who struggled who are going to do better this season. So I think it's going to be more competitive, pushing for the European places this season. So yeah, top. I mean, if we finish 10th, then
come on, Steve, give us a number, man. Come on,
10.
10.
10.
Quick question, genuine. Because again, I think where we're strong, although there's only 3 of them, is fullback. If all 3 are fit, who are your 2
good
fullbacks?
question. Good question. I've got to be honest. If you'd at the start the season, I'd have probably gone Johnny left back and Semedo right back. However, having watched Zico have his second coming and be playing left back for Wolves, I cannot drop Ait-Nouri. Yes, it's only pre-season. He's been outstanding, guys, pre-season. The way here's someone else. I mean, unbelievably, a fullback is supposed to be more defensive than the wing back. We've seen more from him in this situation when Wolves are pressing higher and he's actually a left back than we did him at wing back. So I have to play Ait-Nouri, and then it's a toss-up between Semedo and Johnny. Johnny came back into the team last year, 2 goals in 3 games out of nowhere. Semedo looks like he should score more goals. I always feel like he gets in good positions, but doesn't really end up with the end cross or the goal. So, but that's a great question, Tyler. For me now, and I can't believe I'm saying this because I've stuck it for him for so long, but I'm sticking with what I've got. I like what I've seen pre-season. You've killed me again. You've done this on purpose. You know I love Nelson. But I'm going to stick with Ait-Nouri and Johnny because pre-season they haven't put a foot wrong. They've not been skinned. They've hardly put a pass wrong. They've got forward. They've contributed. They've assisted. It's been good. So let's stick with what we've got. Good luck, Nelson.
I don't think Johnny's ever put a foot wrong, and for me, he always plays. And like you said, at the moment, you can't leave Ait-Nouri out. So I think you're right. I think he's going to have a job to get back in the side when he's fit.
But I mean, for once, that is a great squad dilemma. That when Nelson comes back, then it's the beauty and the versatility of Johnny that he can play on either side.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And I do like the look of that Bueno as well. I think he is one of the ones that sort of does impress me. I don't know if he's, like I said, ready for regular Premier League football, but he looks one that
he's got that Ait-Nouri edge, hasn't he?
Yeah.
He's got that.
He's got an edge to him. Yeah,
he has, yeah. And I think he set the goal up I think he set Chiquinho up against Burnley to make it 3-0. Got into the box, little jink and squared. I think it was him for that. So he's got that about him, but limited first team football, but it's certainly one for the future. I think, just going off again, I think Wolves will sign another utility defender. I know we're linked with someone from Germany. I think we'll sign another fullback to give us there because we've got to think about the 5 sub rule as well. Other teams will have players that can protect their fullbacks, that can protect their energy players. I think we'll see another fullback. I think we'll see another centre midfielder, and I think we'll see a forward. So, but Tyler, fantastic. I think we'll get 3 more in. It's a great question, but it's a really nice problem to have. We're not really blessed all over the pitch with options, but fullback for me, there's 3 very, very good fullbacks there, especially when they're attacking. So Tyler's stung us with the question. He's made me drop Semedo. I didn't want to do that. It's a good one though. So we're talking about the season 22-23. Just moving from Wolves away quickly. I'd like to mix things up a little bit. Who's going to win the league? Ooh. Tyler.
Liverpool.
Oh, Steve.
Man City.
Yeah, I think Man City as well. Give me 3 for the drop, Tyler. Only Wolves don't get any injuries.
Bournemouth. I don't see how Forest can gel all those players. And an outsider in Brentford.
Ooh. Nice. Steve? You said Villa, yeah. Steve. You can't say that, mate.
Yes, I am commentating on the Villa for BBC Radio WMDAB Digital Radio in Birmingham this Saturday.
You were, Steve. You were.
At Bournemouth. at Bournemouth, who will be one of the teams that will be relegated. That's Bournemouth. Nice. Who will be. Bournemouth, I think. I think Forest have got enough, because I like Johnson, and I think they play some decent football. I mean, Jesse Lingard's a quality sign. So I think they could do what Brentford did last season, but at the expense of a team like Brentford. So I think Brentford are going to struggle a bit more this season. Everton won't struggle I don't think as much as they did last season. Fulham, I mean, They just yo-yo every time. So are they going to do it again?
Yeah.
Southampton.
Yeah.
Oh, Bournemouth definitely. Southampton and Fulham.
Ooh.
Or Brentford.
Well, let's just hope there's three worse than us.
I mean, Steve's covered 19 of the Premier League teams to get relegated. We're going to finish somewhere between 7th and 7th. So it's cutting edge reporting from the Wolves Report podcast.
Hey, the BBC, we are impartial. So that's why I've mentioned all 20 teams.
It's the Wolves Report paying you tonight, Steve.
That's yeah, I'm impartial.
Love it. Me personally, I think Forest. I agree with Tyler. I think this is very similar to what Fulham did a couple of years ago. They pretty much bought an entire new 11 to gel that in that time. I think Forest will go. I think Southampton will be in trouble. I think Everton will be in trouble. Brentford again.
I agree on Everton. I think Everton are banging.
I think they were very lucky to stay up last year. I mean, they had a bit of fight about them, but I thought they were very fortunate. But let's move away from that. I was interested to get your opinion and just share a little bit more. Let's try and get a couple of questions on. I think we may have covered a couple of these, but we'll do it quickly. Steve, you can have the stinker first for sitting on the fence. Does our recruitment team need a shake-up? The biggest window under Fosun, and let's be fair, they've done nothing. Maybe out of their depth. It's a stinker.
That is a hard question. Thanks for that. Are they out of their depth? It's difficult. I mean,
William Jose.
Well, Scott, yeah, and that was the recruitment team from your source, not a George Mendes client. I stand corrected. Are they out of their depth? I think that's a bit harsh because they wouldn't be part of a recruitment team of a Premier League football club if they were out of their depth. But it's genuinely, I am sitting on the fence with this because it's a really difficult one to answer because I'm
just posting the questions. It wasn't me that asked it, Steve.
Only because we don't fully. I know they do the Ask Wolves things at the end of the season, but we don't fully know. We're not part of those boardroom conversations. We're not, whether Scott Sellers or whoever goes to Jeff Shee and says we want this player, and he'll go no. Yeah, we don't know what. I genuinely don't know what the process is, so I genuinely can't fully answer that. Whether they're out of the depth and whether they need a shake-up, I think it's difficult.
My opinion is that I think there are some good people at Wolves, but I think the Mendes factor has a big say in what Wolves do, and I think George Mendes has definitely got Jeff and Fosun's ear more than probably his own team. That's my opinion. I might be wrong. It just feels like it's controlled a lot more from outside than in. That's my take on it.
Reliance.
I would say so, yeah. I would say guidance, reliance, and a signing when needed, Fabio Semedo. So, these things happen. I believe there's a good bit of leadership or guidance from outside. I might be wrong, and I'm happily stand corrected. And if Scott Sellers smashes it with a new centre midfielder, fullback, and a striker, and none of them are Mendes clients, Tyler will do the show next week naked. So,
I think I'm safe.
I think you're okay. Here we go then. This one's for you, Tyler. Sorry for the stinker, Steve. Ben Smith asked, do you think we would sign anyone else before the window closes? And in your personal opinion, do you think we have done our business this window?
I just don't see how we finished the business. I'm a half glass empty type of guy.
100%, I know that.
I thought maybe 2 or 3 signings, which would mean we've still got to make 1 or 2 signings. So I just don't see how we can't add numbers. I think there'll have to be a striker, and I'd expect, like you said, Ryan, maybe a full-back cover type or a centre midfield cover type. But put it this way, I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't sign anybody.
Yeah, I would be surprised. I've got a few more questions to bang out, so I won't go on them. Thanks for your question, Ben. Much appreciated. This one's a cracker. This one's from a chap called Knocker, aka The Butcher. Is it true that without The Butcher on the podcast, the show lost its sex appeal? I mean, we've got BBC journalist Stephen Hermon on here tonight, Knocker. So,
the Herminator, I called him earlier.
Oh, I love that. Absolutely love that. I bet he was called that when he was playing as centre midfielder at school. 100%.
I got called it yesterday on air when I was doing the Commonwealth Games.
Yeah,
Let's go on to Mike Allen. Whilst relegation is always on your mind if you're not a top 6 club, I expect we are good enough to stay up. However, is going into a season with only survival to play for good enough? That's a great question. Do you want that stinker, Steve?
I wouldn't say that's a stinker. I think, yeah, that isn't good enough. If you go into a season thinking, oh, let's just survive,
I've got to hold my hands up though.
Wolves.
I've got to hold my hands up. I'm so unsure about next season that if it was a comfortable survival, I'd be happy. If they provided entertaining football, I know that might sound small time, but with such a small squad, if you can give me entertaining football that we're going to enjoy, a back four, bombing on full backs, but more shots, enjoyable, and more moments, and it was a comfortable survival, which is technically survival, it is, I would take that. That might sound small time, but I think in terms of what we spent, that's where we're at.
I think that was my mentality going into last season. After Nuno went and Bruno being a bit of an unknown, that was my mentality last season. That if you'd have offered us 16th, I'd have took it.
I think we'd have all taken that.
But I think that I know. Problem is, like I said, we the views altered a bit because the way that we tailed off towards the end of last season, that was really disappointing. But everything else before that, if you go back to January time, there was a lot to be positive about. And we started this podcast off talking positively about the attacking style of play and the change in formation. So I'm not in that position right now. I mean, I know I danced around it, eventually said top 10, but I think Wolves should be aiming. Wolves should be aiming for top 10 this season. Survival, just playing for survival, isn't good enough. I agree with Mike. It's not good enough.
Thank you, Mike Allen, for your question. I think you did one before as well, and the last episode we did some questions. Greg Hickman asked, what do you think of going into the new season with an even smaller squad than last season? Looking forward to the podcast, lads. Something positive, thumbs up. Greg, a regular contributor and listener on Twitter and on YouTube as well. So thanks again, Greg. Much appreciated. Tyler, what do you think about going to the season with an even smaller squad? We've kind of covered it a little bit. But obviously, Greg's taking his time to pop the question up, so I wanted to give it some acknowledgement. Me personally, it's a concern, but I mean, I've been wrong before. I was wrong about Adama. Knocker and Tyler both told me that I was going to be wrong about Adama. I didn't believe Wolves would do the opposite of what Barcelona did with Trincao. So, but I really believe now there'll be 3 more signings. I think we'll see another fullback. I think we'll see a centre midfielder, and I think we'll see a striker. Will we see any of them before Leeds? Maybe we'll see one. I don't know. I'm just trying to be positive. You asked me to be positive, Greg. Greg with 3 Gs. I'm trying to be positive. So maybe, but it is a concern going into Leeds. I worry about what Tyler said in terms of a game changer at Leeds if it goes wrong. That's a concern for me. So, but Greg, thanks again for your contribution. Getting towards the end of the show, done questions, season expectations, talked about the formation. Couple of minutes left. It's time to talk predictions for Leeds. Now, let's work our way up to the top. Tyler, kick it off for Leeds, please.
I'm going to be as positive as I can be and say 1-1 and Podence.
1-1 and Podence. Not bad. We can take that. Steve, you've got something more shiny than that for us?
A 3-2 win.
Oh, I'm not going to cope with that. Tell us we're 2-0 down, all right, for revenge, and I'll absolutely take that. I'm not sure knock or lasts for half time, but we'll take that.
Yeah, free flowing attacking football. Leeds are still a mess at the back. Lots of goals, lots of fun. Opening day of the season, the away end going mental.
I've got goosebumps thinking about that. You'll have to send me that on a voice message as well. Send that again. I've got to be positive. I thought for a while Wolves were going to win the opening game. I'm probably going to have egg on my face, but I've got to back the boys. I've enjoyed pre-season. I enjoyed the 4-3-3 setup, even with no Raul last week against a very good Sporting side. So I'm going to go 3-1 Wolves. I'm going to go with Pedro Neto. This has been the first episode of the 22-23 season with Steve Hermon from BBC WM and our regular pundit Chris Tyler. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us this evening. I've really enjoyed that. The hour has flown by. Thanks all so much for the comments on Twitter, YouTube and Facebook. We try to get on as many as we can. Thank you for your time. We look forward to you joining you next week after we've won at Ellen Road. the Wolves.